So we're here with Marc Whitten, and your official title in the Xbox division is?
I'm the Chief Product Officer on Xbox and Xbox One.
And you just got off the stage during the E3 2013
2013
Xbox One press conference, or the Xbox press conference, I guess would be the way to say it, just because you guys introduced not just the Xbox One software, but a new version of the Xbox 360.
That's right, yeah.
And you talked a little bit about Xbox Live and a handful of other things, so let's just kind of jump right in. The first thing that I think we have to talk about is something personal to me, is Xbox Live Arcade.
Mm-hmm.
And that was something that there was a division there for a long time, not a division in a negative sense, but that was a thing that you went to that marketplace for specifically digital smaller titles.
Mm-hmm.
And that line is really blurred a lot, right? Like there's full games being offered digitally. You guys are offering digital
mm-hmm.
games on day one with launch at retail. Does that still exist, right? Like, how has Xbox Live Arcade changed or evolved for Xbox One?
Xbox Live Arcade has been obviously tremendous for us, and by the way, probably my favorite game on the platform is Geometry Wars 2.
Okay.
So, I'm all in on those games. But I think what you're really seeing is that digital means that there's large games, there's small games.
Sure.
There's games that are episodic, and I think the line is blurring. What we want is creators of all types, of all sizes, and experiences of all types and sizes to be there and be on our platform. And I think you saw a mix of that today.
Sure.
With everything from a title like Below and smaller titles to obviously huge epic blockbusters.
So in my mind, though, like as a consumer, I separate those things, right? Like I think of something like Below or Geometry Wars or whatever else as a less expensive experience, a less deep experience, and not in a negative way, just in a different way, right? Like it's something that a game I play on my phone is different than something I play on a console versus whatever else, right? There are different kinds of experiences, and I think of that differently. So as we say, like these divisions are kind of blurring, does that mean these kind of marketplaces are changing too, right? Like, does that no longer exist?
Yeah,
right?
I think that it's more possible today to sort of spark someone's imagination and create something that they spend hours and hours on at any sort of size point. And I think you could even, an obvious example is something like Minecraft. Minecraft is a title that is pervasive on Xbox Live. I mean, people are playing it constantly. Like, it is played as much or more than almost any of the the sort of retail sort of AAA blockbusters. It is nothing but a blockbuster.
Sure.
But yet, I think many people tend to sort of put it in the quote Xbox Live Arcade sort of style. I think today, people just want to have a really great entertainment experiences. And sometimes I've got 5 minutes and I want to do something. Sometimes I've got a few friends over and we want to build or craft something. Sometimes I want to play multiplayer Halo or multiplayer Call of Duty. And I think you can have all of that inside of this marketplace. It's the beauty, frankly, of digital.
I agree with the statement you're saying with regards to that all being part of the same marketplace.
Mm-hmm.
But that said, like those various categories existed, and those impact, I think, consumers psychologically, right? Like, I think that people respond to those things differently, and I wonder if does Xbox Live no longer exist, right? Like, is that no longer part of the marketplace, just because, like you're saying, like these lines don't really make sense.
We certainly still have Xbox Live Arcade, and we'll have our Summer of Arcade and things like that. But I do think that more and
on
more
Xbox One, to be clear.
On Xbox One, I think you're going to see them blur a lot.
Okay.
I do, and I think there's far more tools for discovering content on Xbox One. The ability to suddenly find that there's a Twitch stream because someone has been playing a new game and they've discovered it is and so we don't need some of those old kind of like, what's the label A, B, and C inside of a marketplace to go find content, because you can have a richer ecosystem.
Okay, so I'd like to kind of discuss the evolution of Xbox Live, right?
Sure.
From a service that was primarily just a multiplayer matchmaking thing to a marketplace to a kind of bigger experience, and what we can expect on Xbox One. You talked about it a little bit during the press conference, right? The change to real currency, the sharing within family, that kind of stuff. But can you kind of paint a clearer picture of what we'll see on Xbox One?
Well, I think the evolution is a really great way to talk about it, because from my perspective, what we've been doing is we've been discovering, frankly, with the community, what are the types of things that people like to do together, and then how can we really sort of expand on those to create new capabilities. And a classic example from the Xbox 360 generation is that we started Xbox 360 with game chat, but we knew more and more that people wanted to spend the time with their friends and sort of regardless of experiences. And so game chat, which still exists, was augmented with party chat. And now most people spend time in their parties and they move in and out of experiences. From that, we learned, wow, they don't just want to communicate when they're in games, but they actually want to do the same things when they're in entertainment. And so those things sort of keep building on each other. What we get to do with Xbox One is really special, because there's two really interesting things. The first one is we know that if we can give more cloud power to game creators, they'll start to be able to take raw advantage of Xbox Live to really change the experience. And I think you heard that from people like Forza, where they talked about like, hey, we're going to change AI. Like that's our new way that we're going to think about using cloud power, or the living worlds that they talked about inside of Sunset Overdrive. And that always available sort of cloud power, I think, is going to be a real differentiator. Secondly, this ability to do more than one thing at a time, which you saw with Twitch, for example,
Sure.
I think is really going to allow it to become much more of this almost community mashup. You know, there's the game experience that's going on, there's this interesting thing I want to do with my friends or with the content, and being able to put those together is going to really open up the canvas that you have on how game works. That's why we're investing a lot in sort of the social undertones of how Live works, making it easier for you to get connected with all of your friends, because we think that's what's really going to drive it.
Speaking specifically to the Twitch stuff, that was a kind of a big deal today, right? Like Sony kind of came out swinging with streaming during their announcement for the PlayStation 4 with Ustream and a dedicated chip and all this other stuff. But some of that stuff is in the Xbox One as well, right? Like there's not the same stuff to be clear, but there is a system for a dedicated system for handling like the game DVR is kind of what it's called. Right. So how does that work? How much does that record? All these kind of things.
Yeah.
So,
well, you know. What that's allowed us to do is really create, the architecture of Xbox One allows us to create this type of capability where we can have an underlying system that's kind of the core game DVR system that's constantly recording gameplay, and then you allow different applications to take advantage of that to build different experiences. You saw two different versions using the same thing. Project Upload, where I could take video that I just played, decorate it, put it back out, share it, edit it, all on my console or frankly off my console.
And that's directly to Twitch, right? That's not to Facebook or Twitter or whatever.
Project Upload, I can think of that as sharing that with my social networks.
Okay.
So Project Upload is like, I finished a game and I want to save it for, and I want to edit it and I want to have some fun with it, things like that.
Sure.
Twitch is, we're playing right now, and I want you to be able to watch not only the game, but you're going to sort of have me green screened in, and you can see me talking. You can, I can sort of be the sort of game caster that's talking about this game in real time.
Could I take over your game?
No. This is more about you being able to be social inside of your game.
Right.
It's not about like some of those types of scenarios. Now, as a participant, we're going to spend a lot of time where Xbox Live viewers will be able to really push on kind of what's going on in the game, and I think you're going to see some really cool ideas come out of that.
Is there any sort of an idea for a kind of spectator sport, right? Like this has a lot of applications for Major League Gaming or competitive gaming or whatever else.
Well, that's a really great example of where, because of our architecture, you could imagine having snapping a tournament system while you're playing your games, or snapping, the sort of broadcast, the broadcaster who's talking about a specific
right.
I don't know how much you follow things like Star Trek.
Livecaster? I can't remember what they're called.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
Yes,
But, you watch those things on YouTube or Twitch or other things are pretty fun to watch, and I think our system is really tailor built to make that an integral part of the gameplay.
The big thing that you guys focused on today was all games, right? That was something that that various Microsoft reps had said before coming into this, that we're going to be focusing on games, we're going to talk games. And in the last week, we've seen some kind of backlash, right? And it wasn't really addressed here at all, and not that this might have been a place to address it, right? So is there anything in terms of the used game market or the always-on stuff that people, that you'd like to get out there, right? Like in terms of response to consumers?
Well, the first thing, let me just say, it's awesome to have like great fans that always tell you whether they like things, whether they're confused by things, whether they don't like things, and we're constantly listening to those things. We put up some blog posts last week on Xbox Wire where we detailed out, frankly, to be transparent about how our system worked. And then today what we wanted to do is share, really, frankly, our great portfolio of games, so that you've seen the console, you understand how the console works, you've seen the games, and now people can start to really think about sort of what Xbox One is. I will still say that I believe that the world is moving to digital, and digital experiences allow you to create types of gameplay experiences that you just can't otherwise do. The ability to go somewhere, have your content always be up to date, to see your games library wherever you go, including your family's games library at the same time, are the types of things that we can do when we start really rethinking the digital ecosystem. We believe that there's a lot of great advantages that also come with physical, which is why we've brought forward things like the ability to have a secondary market, the ability to gift to your friends, and we're going to continue to push on, how can we really create a great experience for you to get, play, share content, of all types.
So this is something I'm particularly interested in because there's been a big move to digital across the board, right? Not just games, but music and video, et cetera. And it's really been interesting to see games kind of struggling with that across the past few years, whereas it seems like some of the other mediums have not completely figured things out, but they've come to a better a finality or something to kind of that makes sense for consumers, right? And it seems like this stuff is all really in flux, right? Like the backlash we saw this week wasn't necessarily people who were upset about a thing and directing it at Microsoft. It was like upset about confusion or upset about unknowing or upset about change or whatever else. I mean, there's legitimate things for people to be concerned with. I don't mean to downplay their concern, but I mean that in the sense that it seems like this is all still really in flux, right? Like, would you describe that as the way that Microsoft is still approaching this?
Yeah, well, I think this is, I think the word I think a lot about is transition. I think we're going into a transition into digital, and that means a lot of things are changing. And now, I don't know if I think games aren't doing a good job of that. I think all of the conversation we just had around arcade is really about the growth of digital delivered games.
Sure.
I also think when you say things like World of Tanks, which is a completely different model type of game that's really all about being digital, you're seeing more and more experimentation, but we're certainly in a transition period around that. And I think as an industry, as consumers, as platform owners, as content creators, as retailers, we're all going into that transition together, and I think we're going to learn a lot together, frankly. I think that's sort of what going through those transitions look like.
The concept of you guys letting publishers kind of decide themselves whether they allow that kind of stuff that's especially interesting to me, right? Because it seems like you're kind of letting the market decide instead of forcing people to do it one way or another. Maybe I'm misreading that. I don't know.
No, I think there's this really key point. I think all kind of markets are sort of an equilibrium between customers and content creators and the platforms and retail that sort of is the distribution. And
Sure.
what you want to do is you want to sort of give the tools for those four sets of people to kind of find the natural place in the market. And that's what we're doing. We're going to put those tools out there. We're going to listen and we're going to learn. And I think we're going to go through this together.
Moving back to Xbox Live stuff and the indies front. You guys talked a little bit about indies today. You talked about Minecraft. You talked about Super Brothers game Below and a handful of other things.
D4.
D4, yeah, that slipped in the sweary game in there. I'm especially interested to see what's going to happen with the Xbox Live Indies section, right? Like, that was never a huge part of Xbox 360 necessarily, but it's been an important section especially for the kind of budding development community, right? Like people who aren't necessarily veterans, but people who want to give their first shot at games like that.
Right.
Is there going to be some sort of support for those folks?
You'll see us talk a lot more about it later, but let me talk about a couple of things.
Sure.
We're in on indie. Like, we think that creators of all classes have to be on this platform. I think it's critical in order for it to be a healthy platform. And in fact, so much of what we've been able to invest in around the architecture is about that. Being able to pull the great tools that come from Windows with sort of where we are from sort of the core Xbox stuff is going to allow us to sort of leverage, frankly, not just the 30 years of development tools that Microsoft is frankly, incredibly well known for, but also the leverage of being able to think about how do I create experiences on Windows and Xbox that cross over, and how can I think about those as a really interesting an interesting market. That for us is key to allow big developers, but also people that are just starting out, indies, across the board. I'm actually incredibly passionate about Project Spark.
Sure.
Just because I think that's the other step, which is how do we get the next generation of indie creators excited and interested in programming to begin with. And I think this idea that you could drop someone into a game that they're playing, but they can start to learn to be a creator and have it be their imagination is going to open that up even more.
Okay. So just to be completely clear, is there an Xbox Live Indies section?
Again, I think this goes back to sections. I think is a really bad word because I think the marketplace is going to become more blurred. So you'll hear more from us later. I'll just say that for me, I think it's really critical on the Xbox One platform that we really have a vibrant ability for people to be on the platform from an independent developer's perspective.
All right. And the Xbox 360. Let's talk to that for a second, just in terms of there being a new model. What's the impetus behind that, I guess, just in terms of branding? Or?
Well, there's a couple of things. The first one is we were able to make it smaller, and we've been doing that over the past several years. We did that with our the Xbox 360 Slim release. This is another example to do this. It does pull it into the family so that Xbox One and Xbox 360 look really great together. Frankly, you should also just take it as our commitment to that category, because we believe there is so much left in Xbox 360 at retail, online, and with the games. that I don't know why you wouldn't. There's just a lot to still be done on that platform.
So why you might not, though, is because you're buying an Xbox One and you might be worried about that stuff not transferring over, right? Like, I know that I have friends who might be wary of buying an XBLA game right now because they know that it won't go to their next console, and they're already planning to buy that. Not that that's necessarily a huge deal, but I wonder if there's something like, so there's HDMI CEC in Xbox One, for instance. Am I able to plug in a 360 via HDMI to my Xbox One and then play it through the Xbox One?
I think those are great. Those are great ideas. We should talk about them more in the future.
It's an interesting answer.
You know what? The thing I'll tell you is, you're right. It's not the platform's not backwards compatible.
Right.
We believe everybody's going to still have a lot of Xbox 360s. We think it's going to be a great place for you to buy games, to play games,
sure,
to sort of interact with your community. And I want people to feel like that the Xbox 360 and the Xbox One work really well together. So I'll sort of leave it at that. But there's a lot of things I think you can do there, both in live and making sure that that's one community, and frankly, even more directly, how those products can work together.
Okay. It still has a disk drive, right? I didn't see it.
Yes, it did.
Okay. Okay. It's just lots of rumors about set-top boxes and all sorts of craziness. Speaking still to the Xbox 360, where do you see the life cycle of that, right? Like, is this the 10-year life cycle of the Xbox 360? Are we going to see it for another 3 or 4 years?
I for sure think we will. I mean, again, to me, it'll be judged by customers, because I think as long as people are playing on 360, as long as there's this really vibrant community on Xbox Live, I think you're going to have content creators are going to go there because there's a great market to play. We're very focused on it from a first party and a platform perspective.
Sure.
So certainly for the next several years, you're going to see us continue to invest heavily in it. But I think it could go on actually much farther than that, and I think it'll be sort of dictated by sort of how much people keep playing it.
Are we going to see moves into other markets, right? Like maybe South America? Or,
yeah, we've been really focused with the Xbox 360 over the past several years on moving into more international markets, new sort of customer segments. And,
sure.
Brazil, as an example, has been really, really great market for us with Xbox 360, and you're going to see more of that.
Okay, and so I think the thing we need to wrap on is the price. It's $500. That's a lot of money. I don't know how else to put it. It's the price of an iPad. It's the price of the first PS3s that people said, oh God, about. It's a lot, right? I mean, it comes with a Kinect, it comes with a gamepad. I get that there are these accessories bundled in, and it's got some pretty powerful hardware inside, so it has to cost some money. And you guys are in the business of making money, so of course that makes sense. But I guess I wonder if you're worried about backlash from that, if you're worried about the reaction, if there are potentially other payment options people might hear about in the future, that kind of thing.
Well, first off, I think we're bringing tremendous value into the ecosystem. I think we've built something. I think people saw a bunch of great games. I think those games look amazing. I think they can take advantage of things like Kinect in the cloud in ways that they never could before. And I do think it really allows us to create a premium entertainment experience. The key thing is that we want to make sure that we can deliver something that delivers immense value on day one, but that is also future-proof, that you're going to get more and more out of it. To me, that's been the hallmark of the 360. The Xbox 360 that launched in 2005 is very, very different than the Xbox 360 today. And that's all about how can we sort of create this future-proof architecture. And so I feel good about the price. I think we've sort of built a ton of value in, and I think people are going to be pretty excited with what they can do with this sort of all-in-one entertainment, great games experience. We continue to have Xbox 360 on the market. I think there's going to be a nice family of devices and experiences from Xbox that people can go in. And we're going to continue to look at other ways that you could participate in the ecosystem. One thing that you probably have seen on the Xbox 360 is where we do things where you can get an Xbox 360 at a lower price point,
right,
with a 2-year subscription to Xbox Live. We're really enjoying that on the Xbox 360.
It's been a big success as far as I know, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, that seems like that's kind of what I'm getting at here, right?
Yeah,
is that was known as a success, and it seems like that makes perfect sense to apply.
Yeah, we'll keep looking at those types of ideas. Yeah.
Okay. And I know that I said that was the last question, but I have one more.
Sure, absolutely.
And it's specifically with regards to the cloud processing stuff.
Sure.
And the kind of, it seems like almost a push away from, between the Windows 8 OS in there and the cloud stuff, it seems like kind of push back against the console cycle, right? Against the concept of you having fixed tech and having to deal with that fixed tech for a set number of years and dealing with limitations therein. Like you said, the Xbox 360 has changed a lot over the past 8 years, but it's still the same, 512 megs of RAM and whatever. It's amazing that it's doing those things, but it's old tech. And so as a result, it seems like this stuff, the cloud and Windows 8 and whatever, seems like a push to get away from that, right? To move into the Xbox brand being something beyond technology, so to speak.
Well, there's a ton of technology in the cloud and
Of
those
course,
other
yeah.
things, but
Sure.
I think we think that the hardware that we're able to put in your living room, this frankly supercomputer that still somehow can sit on top of your receiver underneath your TV and be silent, which is an amazing amount of processing power that allows you to do these experiences, is really, really key. And I don't think we're moving away from that at all. What we're doing is we're making sure that we can augment that, so that because I think more experiences are frankly a mix between what you can do locally and what you can do in a service that's changing over time, is changing even when you're not actually currently on the console. And so if you can't create that and really create the opportunity so that creators can feel like it just works and that they have those tools there, I think you just won't get as far as you want to go. But for me, it's really been about how do we build the cloud directly into, how I think about having a CPU, a GPU, RAM, and this cloud processing. Like it's another piece on the menu for me to go build the great experiences as a creator.
Okay, all right.
Awesome.
I think that's it. Thank
Great.
you very much, Mark.
Yeah, absolutely.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.